Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari. Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari. Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari. Yasoda Nandana Vraja Jana Ranjana. Yasoda Nandana Vraja Jana Ranjana. Yamuna Tira Vanachari. Yamuna Tira Vanachari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari. Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari. Gopi Jana Vallabha. Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari. Yasoda Nandana Vraja Jana Ranjana. Yasoda Nandana Vraja Jana Ranjana. Yasoda Nandana Vraja Jana Ranjana. Yamuna Tira Vanachari. Yamuna Tira Vanachari. Jaya Radha Madhava Radha Madhava Radhe. Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Jayam Vishnupad Paramahamsa Parivekacharya Stotra Sadasya Simad Abhay Charana Ravinda Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda ki jai. Namacharya Sri Haridas Thakur ki jai. Prem se kaho Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Sivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda ki jai. Granta Raj Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam ki jai. Nitai Gaura Premanande. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the lotus feet of Sri Guru and Sri Gauranga. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Om ज्ञानतिमिरन्दस्य ज्ञानञ्जनशलाकया चक्षुरुं मिलितं येन तस्मै श्रीगुरवे नमः। श्रीचैतन्यमनोभीष्टं स्थापितं येन भूतले स्वयं रूपा कदा मह्यं ददाति स्वपदान्तिकम्। वन्देऽहं श्रीगुरो श्रीयुतापदकमलं श्रीगुरुं वैष्णवंश्च श्रीरूपं साग्रजातं सहगना रघुनाथं वितं तं सजीवं साद्वैतं सवादूतं परिजनसहितं कृष्णचैतन्यदेवं श्रीराधा कृष्णपादं सहगना ललिता श्रीविशाखान्वितंश्च। हे कृष्णा करुणा सिन्धु दीनबन्धो जगत्पते गोपेशा गोपिका कान्ता राधाकान्त नमस्तुते। तप्त कंचन गौरांगे राधे वृंदावनेश्वरे वृषभानुसुते देवी प्रणमामि हरिप्रिये। वाञ्छाकल्पतरुभ्यश्च कृपा सिन्धुभ्येव च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः। जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासदि गौर भक्तवृंद। हरे कृष्णा कृष्णा कृष्ण हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे। ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय। ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय। ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय। Hare Krishna. So we're reading from Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam, 9th canto, chapter 13, text 9. Chapter entitled The Dynasty of Mahārāja Nimi. Yasya yogam na vanchanti. Yasya yogam na vanchanti. Viyoga bhayakataraha. Viyoga bhayakataraha. Bhajanti charanam bhojam. Bhajanti charanam bhojam. Munayo harimedasaha. Munayo harimedasaha. Yasya yogam na vanchanti. Viyoga bhayakataraha. Bhajanti charanam bhojam. Munayo harimedasaha. Bolo. Yasya yogam na vanchanti. Viyoga bhayakataraha. Bhajanti charanam bhojam. Munayo harimedasaha. Yogam na vanchanti. Viyoga bhayakataraha. Bhajanti charanam bhojam. Yo harimedasaha. Yasya yoga na vanchanti viyoga vayakataraha bhajanti charanamboyam munayo harimedasaha. Vaishnavis. Yasya yogan na vanchanti viyoga vayakataraha bhajanti charanamboyam munayo harimedasaha. Yasya yogan na vanchanti viyoga vayakataraha bhajanti charanamboyam munayo harimedasaha. Yasya yogan na vanchanti viyoga bhayakataraha bhajanti charanamboyam munayo harimedasaha. Yasya, with the body. Yogam, contact. Na, do not. Vanchanti, Gyanis, desire. Viyoga bhayakataraha, being afraid of giving up the body again. Bhajanti, offered transcendental loving service. Charana Ambhojam, to the lotus feet of the Lord. Munayaha, great saintly persons. Harimedasaha, whose intelligence is always absorbed in thoughts of Hari, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada ki. Mahārāja Nimi continued, Māyāvādīs generally want freedom from accepting a material body because they fear having to give it up again. But devotees whose intelligence is always filled with the service of the Lord are unafraid. Indeed, they take advantage of the body to render transcendental loving service. Please repeat. Mahārāja Nimi continued. Māyāvādīs generally want freedom from accepting a material body because they fear having to give it up again. But devotees whose intelligence is always filled with the service of the Lord are unafraid. Indeed, they take advantage of the body to render transcendental loving service. Purport. Please listen carefully. It's a nice purport, as usual. Mahārāja Nimi did not want to accept a material body, which will be a cause of bondage. Because he was a devotee, he wanted a body by which he could render devotional service to the Lord. Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur sings, Jamma obi more icha yaditora, bhakta grihe yani jamma hau mora, kita jamma hau yata tu yadasa. My Lord, if you want me to take birth and accept a material body again, kindly do me this favor. Allow me to take birth in the home of your servant, your devotee. I do not mind being born there even as an insignificant creature, like an insect. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu also said, Na dhanam na janam na sundarim kavitam va jagadisha kamaye mama jammani jammanishvare bhavatad bhakti rahaituki tvaji. O Lord of the universe, I do not desire material wealth, materialistic followers, a beautiful wife, or fruitive activities described in flowery language. All I want, life after life, is a motivated devotional service to you. Sikshastaka 4. By saying life after life, Jammani, Jammani, the Lord referred not to an ordinary birth, but a birth in which to remember the lotus feet of the Lord. Such a body is desirable. A devotee does not think like yogis and jnanis, who want to refuse a material body and become one with the impersonal Brahman effulgence. A devotee does not like this idea. On the contrary, he will accept any body, material or spiritual, for he wants to serve the Lord. This is real liberation. If one has a strong desire to serve the Lord, even if he accepts a material body, there is no cause of anxiety, since a devotee, even in a material body, is a liberated soul. This is confirmed by Srila Rupa Goswami. Iha yasya harer dasye karmana manasagira Nikila swapya vastasu jivam mukta sauchyate. A person acting in Krishna consciousness, or in other words, in the service of Krishna, with his body, mind, intelligence, and words, is a liberated person even within the material world, although he may be engaged in many so-called material activities. The desire to serve the Lord establishes one as liberated in any condition of life, whether in a spiritual body or a material body. So what establishes one in a liberated condition of life? The desire to serve the Lord. In a spiritual body, the devotee becomes a direct associate of the Lord. But even though a devotee may superficially appear to be in a material body, he is always liberated and is engaged in the same duties of service to the Lord as a devotee in Vaikuntha Loka. There is no distinction. It is said, Sadur Jivo Ma Marova. Whether a devotee is alive or dead, his only concern is to serve the Lord. Tyatva deham punarjamma naitimam eti. When he gives up his body, he goes directly to become an associate of the Lord and serve him, although he does the same thing even in a material body in the material world. For a devotee, there is no pain, pleasure, or material perfection. One may argue that at the time of death, a devotee also suffers because of giving up his material body. But in this connection, the example may be given that a cat carries a mouth in its mouth and also carries a kitten in its mouth. Both the mouse and the kitten are carried in the same mouth, but the perception of the mouse is different from that of the kitten. When a devotee gives up his body, tyatva deham, he is ready to go back home, back to Godhead. Thus his perception is certainly different from that of a person being taken away by Yamaraj for punishment. A person whose intelligence is always concentrated upon the service of the Lord is unafraid of accepting a material body, whereas a non-devotee, having no engagement in the service of the Lord, is very much afraid of accepting a material body or giving up his present one. Therefore, we should follow the instruction of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Mama Jammani Jammanishvare Bhavatad Bhaktir Ahaitoki Tvayi. Now, conclusion of this purport, it doesn't matter whether we accept a material body or a spiritual body. Our only ambition should be to serve the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Hare Krishna. So seeking the blessings of the Vaishnavas, especially my teachers are here sitting, senior Vaishnavas. So the consciousness of a devotee is being described in this verse. And the context is that Mahārāja Nimi was going to be given a body by the sages. And in the previous verse, he's saying, well, I don't really... What is it? He said, please do not imprison me again in a material body. But now in this verse, Mahārāja Nimi is clarifying the position of a devotee. And a devotee doesn't mind actually taking a material birth. Why is this? Because for a devotee doesn't fear any condition of life, because the focus of a devotee is what? According to the purport. He has only one ambition. And what is that ambition? It's service to Krishna, it's serving to the Lord. So regardless of whatever situation he may find himself in, he is satisfied. And again, this is a very high consciousness. It's not like a very easy to attain to this situation. But this is the message of the Bhagavatam. The Bhagavatam is aiming at transforming our hearts, changing our hearts from material to spiritual. It says that it's meant to bring a revolution in the impious life of this world's misdirected civilization. So what is that revolution in the heart that needs to take place? The revolution is from God-centered, from self-centered, from me being in the center, to God-centered. And many, many different stories are given to illustrate the principle that actually the only way by which we can become peaceful, and not just even peaceful, but blissful and ecstatic, is when we act for the pleasure of Krishna. It's a simple message. We heard this so many times, but it just takes so much for us to kind of assimilate it and implement it, because one thing is to hear it, but to live by that principle, that the devotee, in any condition of life, his only concern is what is my duty? How can I serve Krishna? How can I please Krishna? And when we actually act on this consciousness, on this platform, we are liberated. There's no need to go back to Godhead for the devotee in that sense. Because his consciousness creates that spiritual atmosphere. So and this is the highest goal. There is nothing, there is no higher attainment in life than to develop a relationship with Krishna. Is the priceless, the matchless gift. And why is this? Because actually this is the only thing that is going to satisfy our hearts. And therefore, the whole Bhagavatam is full of these like extreme stories, where we can see how the devotees became, those who were fixed in the service of the Lord, remain unaffected by their situation. And, Kali Yuga particularly is designed in such a way, material nature for that matter, that we're constantly being faced with perplexity and with, I would say, like drama or very extreme situations. I'm sure that everyone sitting here has their own story about what goes on in life. And the whole point of the Bhagavatam is actually teaching us how to respond to these situations. And how do we respond to these situations? Narayana, the Bhagavatam itself, Lord Shiva, he is explaining the quality of a devotee when Chitraketu, he was cursed by Parvati. He had not really done anything wrong. He just more or less kind of joke, appreciating Lord Shiva, because Lord Shiva was preaching to the sadhus and he had Parvati on his lap. And he made a comment like, how wonderful this is, that he's preaching detachment while he has his partner on his lap. And Parvati took this as an offense to Lord Shiva, and she cursed him. And then Chitraketu accepted the curse. She took it. And then Lord Shiva, he said that, what is it? Narayana parasarve, nakutaschana bivyati, swarga pavargan narakeshu, api tulyarta darshina. It says that the devotee doesn't fear any condition of life. For him, going to heaven, living in this world, or going to hell doesn't make any difference. Tulyarta api darshana. It means that basically they all have the same value. So the devotee is not concerned with the external situation. It's all about his internal life. It's all about the relationship we have with Krishna. It's a simple principle. I remember this point when I was told that actually if we want to change our world, then we have to change our hearts. This spiritual life, and it's the only thing that works. Material life is the opposite. We try to adjust our environment. We rebel against it, we fight it. But the devotee, the consciousness of a devotee is that whatever is happening in his life, he actually sees that as Krishna's mercy, and he tries to understand how that is helping him in his progress in service. How does assist in my service? And therefore, he can be peaceful in any condition of life. He doesn't aspire for any material situation. He has understood, realized that actually the only thing that brings happiness, the only thing that brings satisfaction, what I'm meant for actually, because even that, the soul is by nature pleasure seeking. We are looking for pleasure, but the devotee is actually is our nature to serve Krishna, and when we act according to our nature, we feel satisfied. So therefore, the devotee, having realized this, that he's not, he doesn't fear any condition of life. Nakutaschana bhibyati. No fear. We are the conditioned living entity in the material world is in constant fear. Why? Because we have so many material expectations, and also because to some extent we don't fully trust Krishna. Yeah, if you have full trust in Krishna, then why will you fear? That's the point, the meaning of Narayana Parayana, that the devotee has only one shelter, and who is that shelter is Krishna, and he fully trusts him. So is the whole message of the Bhagavatam, and is to actually teach us how to trust Krishna. Because, as I said, the material will be placed in so many complex situations, so many complexities. And then what to do? What do we do when we are in a complex situation? We have various choices, right? But the choice that the Bhagavatam is recommending is that we trust Krishna. We follow his instructions. We try to please him. Even though that may bring some inconvenience in my life, even though some people may not appreciate, still, I will do my duty, which is to please Krishna. And if I do that, everything will be fine. Everything will, I will be protected. Narayana. But again, it's a gradual process. To come to this platform takes time. And we're put through all these tribulations in order to learn this. And how do we actually apply? Actually, even in the Bhagavatam itself is another verse. Muktanang apisidanam narayana prayana. It says that out of many millions of liberated souls, only one actually becomes Narayana Parayana. Only one actually takes complete shelter, is fully surrendered to the Supreme Lord. And Madhvacharya explains there that it says that it's 90 million demigods and 70 million sages. And out of all those, only a few are Narayana Parayana. So it's a very lofty goal. But even the Bhagavad is what we aspire for, and what is available for us actually if we follow the process given us by Srila Prabhupada. We can actually invoke Krishna's mercy and Krishna's protection by following the instructions of the spiritual master when we embrace this. And this is also part of taking shelter of Krishna. Narayana Parayana. Prabhupada said, get up in the morning, 4 o'clock. He said many places in his books, everyone should get up at 4 o'clock in the morning. This isn't just brahmacharis or grihastas or sannyasis. No, he said, everyone, get up, attend Mangalarti, chant your 16 rounds. If we follow these simple instructions in this life, we will gradually realize this point, that the only thing that is going to actually bring me happiness is when I act for the pleasure of Krishna without any motivation. Savai pumsam paro dharmo, yato bhaktir adoksaye, ahaituki apratihata, yayatma suprasidati. The supreme occupation, the topmost dharma, is that by which all men can attain to loving devotional service to the Supreme Lord. Such devotional service must be unmotivated and uninterrupted in order to completely satisfy the self. So this point of unmotivated is so difficult. And it's so difficult because we're conditioned, really. Because actually when we do it, is the happiest thing. And I was just thinking that Prabhupada actually explains in the 5th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita. There is very, very beautiful verses towards the end of the chapter. And he is describing there the consciousness of the devotee, actually. The devotee who has attained perfection. And he's saying that he is free from doubts, and he is acting for he finds his happiness within. Happiness comes from within. It's not looking for external happiness. It's beyond the dualities of illusion and misgivings, and finds his happiness within, and is acting for the welfare of other living entities. And it's a series of verses. So the one point being made there also is that those who are wise, they do not get engaged in sense gratification. Yeah? Because they know that sense gratification leads to misery. Eh? What is the Sanskrit? Adyantavanta konteya. That it says that such sense enjoyment or sense gratification, it leads to misery. So therefore the wise man does not engage in those activities. We have heard that also many times, but we have to really constantly remind ourselves, because Maya comes usually with the bait, right? And she comes and says, well, if you gratify your senses in this way or that way, you will enjoy, you will be happy. you need it. It tricks us to believe like that. But actually we understand through the eyes of Shastra that this is a trap by Maya. Sense gratification leads to misery. And on the other hand, devotional service leads to unlimited, unbounded happiness, beyond what we can even conceive. So, therefore, the devotee, we aspired for this. And whenever the opportunity for sense gratification comes, we have to remind ourselves that this is not going to bring happiness. Because I am not this body. I am not these senses. I am not this mind. I am the soul. And the soul can only be satisfied by coming in touch with Krishna. There is, as I said, when we connect with Krishna, there is nothing that brings higher happiness. So therefore, in order to actually give us this lower type of enjoyment, we have to get a higher taste in Krishna consciousness. We have to become intellectually convinced that material life leads to misery. And at the same time, we have to develop this higher taste, cultivate this higher taste in Krishna's, in devotional service. And how do we get the higher taste? Generally, the way to get higher taste is by associating with senior Vaishnavas and through surrender. Actually, the surrender part is what brings that higher taste. I was just thinking today that coming into that platform, trying to meditate of times in life where the material external situation appeared to be very not so satisfying, but actually I was happy. And those who are out in book distribution may have experienced this many times. That, I remember like I was doing the marathon this Christmas, and there was one day it was like raining all day. It was very, very horrible day, and people were like very unfriendly and nasty, and it was like one person after another. So for 1 hour, I stopped one person, very nice man, but one person. Second hour, one person. 60 minutes, they look like an eternity, 12 years or more, when no one stopped him. But I remember, at one point I thought, well, actually, I'm satisfied. What's the big problem, I'm liking doing this. And I continued, and for another hour, nothing was happening. So the higher taste came. And at that point, you get actually the realization that actually, what I expect that is happiness, it is not. What was my expectation that day? I've chanted my rounds very diligently, and I went out like as early as I could, carrying like a trolley full of books. And my expectation was that, yes, all the books will go out, and everybody will be very, friendly. But they were not. And I still was satisfied by doing that. And of course, some people in between came along, and somehow Krishna, at the end of the day kind of sent many people, and the books went out. But it's a simple point that happiness lies on pleasing Krishna. It doesn't lie on pleasing myself. We all have first-hand experience of this, and we join the movement because of this. We surrender at one point, and we got a higher taste. And that surrender is not like a one-time event. We have to keep practicing that art of surrender, blissful surrender. And then the taste will come. We actually will come to realize, like here, we have the example of Chitraketu. What was coming? He was, cursed to become a demon, and he didn't complain. What other stories there in the Bhagavatam? Jat Bharat. Jat Bharat is there, and is being like abused by all his family members. We will be traumatized. Just if one family member is nasty to us, we become so disturbed. Never mind your whole family. Then later on he was, abused by the dacoits. He was put by his family members on the middle of the field to just like, what do you call that? I forgot. To scare the birds. I forgot. Scarecrow. And he's there. And he's so much in touch with reality. He doesn't do anything about it. You see the difference between a conditioned soul and a liberated soul. And then when the dacoits, call him, they're gonna like sacrifice him there in front of Bhadrakali, and he is not doing anything. He's just accepting Narayana Parayana, fully trusting Krishna. Fully trusting Krishna. No trying to adjust him. That's very, very extreme example. That full trust. And why? Because of internally he's so realized. He understands that nothing can take place without Krishna's sanction. He is actually the supreme controller. I am his surrendered service. Whatever is happening is his arrangement. I am satisfied. That's the reality. And the illusion is I am the controller and the enjoyer. Why the world is not functioning according to my desires. Material life, we have this false expectation that the world should move according to my needs and my desires. And when it doesn't, we become very disturbed. And we become very frustrated. But actually, this is meant to happen. And it's meant to teach us the lesson that actually we are meant. The whole world is not meant for our pleasure. It's meant to please. We are meant to please Krishna, to ask for Krishna's pleasure. So he didn't respond there. And then later on, when Rahugana was chastising him, right, then he decided to give mercy to Rahugana, to preach to him, acting for his welfare. He responded to him. So, therefore, Prabhupada is making the point that for a devotee, it doesn't matter whether one has a material body or whatever condition of life he has, his only concern is with the service of the Lord. And he's quoting famous, like a famous story, that it says, it is said, Sadhu Jivo Va Marova. He said, for the devotee, there was one time one sadhu came to one village. And in the village, people were approaching the sadhu for benedictions. And there was a prince, there was a butcher, there was a brahmachari, and there was a devotee. And the sadhu was giving blessings to each one of them. And when the prince came, he said, you better don't die. So why? Because to the prince he said, you better don't die. Then to the brahmachari, you die immediately. To the butcher, nor die, nor live. And to the devotee also, nor die, nor live. You may die or you may live, sorry. So then the villagers were asking for an explanation. And they said that the prince, he said, well, actually the prince, he's enjoying so much now. But when he dies, he will have to suffer so much karma. So better live forever. And the brahmachari, he's performing so much austerity, so much tapasya, no one giving any credit. He has to obey everybody's instructions. So if he dies in his next life, he will get so much credit. And then he says, for the butcher, he said, either live or die. Both conditions, hellish. Living as a butcher, horrible. If you die, so much karma coming. And he says to the devotee, either you die or you live, it doesn't matter. Both are good. Both are good. One time Prabhupada was asked by Achyutananda Swami at the time. He said, what is more important? To spread Krishna consciousness or to go back home, back to Godhead? What is more important? Spread Krishna consciousness and go back home, back to Godhead. What do you think? Spread Krishna consciousness. Prabhupada's response was, those who are preaching are already back home, back to Godhead. That's the. So the goal, again, going back home, back to Godhead, we're aspiring for a consciousness here. What determines where we are is our consciousness. Prabhupada exemplified this through his life. And those who have the opportunity to associate directly with Prabhupada felt in his presence a different atmosphere. Sometimes we experience this when we come in front of the deity. Sometimes we experience that when we come to Prabhupada's room. I remember the first time I came to Bhakti-yoga Manor, I went into Prabhupada's room. And I entered there and my mind stopped, literally. It was like completely peaceful. But really drastic. It was like, I was shocked actually. And I remember I went out of the room to check, what's the difference, and it changed. And I came back in and it was so peaceful. And I had that point, I remember, I thought, this is where I want to be. I want to be at Prabhupada's lotus feet. No safer place in the three worlds. Shanti. Bhoktara yagatapasam sarvaloka maheswaram suridam sarvabhutanam yatva mam shanti rikshati. Krishna concludes this fifth chapter with his describing this amazing consciousness of an elevated soul. And he says that, what is the formula for peace? Bhoktaram yagya tapashang. He says that one actually understands that the ultimate beneficiary for all activities, even if you are into doing karma kanda activities, the ultimate beneficiary is Krishna. If you are into performing tapasya, who is the beneficiary also? Tapasya is meant for the Supreme Lord. And if you are a yogi meditating on the Super Soul sitting within the heart, acting as a friend to all living entities, who is actually the Supreme Friend to all? It's Krishna. So when one understands this and acts according to this platform, as I said, trusting Krishna. Like Prabhupada was asked one time, how can I trust my superior? He's not chanting his rounds. And Prabhupada said, trust no one. Trust Krishna. But did he actually meant that we should trust no one? Should we trust no one? That's not real. The meaning is that we should trust Krishna. That even though the people who are dealing with us may be dishonest or whatever may be, still behind everything, the supreme controller, the supreme sanctioner of everything is Krishna. And therefore, when we understand this, we can be peaceful in any condition of life. And as I said, peace is not just the goal, but actually we can attain like unlimited happiness by reconnecting with Krishna. Hare Krishna. So I'll read the last sentence because this will be the theme of what we are discussing. It doesn't matter whether we accept a material body or a spiritual body. Our only ambition should be, what should be our only ambition? Thank you. Nothing else. And whatever problems we have to cope with today, just my only duty is my only ambition is to let Krishna be pleased by my actions. And again, I was just telling you about the story in Sankirtan that, this is our life. I'm just telling my thing with book distribution, but we experience this in devotional service. That a typical day in Sankirtan is that you go out and then you go through a whole turmoil where people are stopping or not stopping, and gradually you come to the point to understand, actually, I can do nothing. I can do nothing. It's totally beyond my control. All I can do is try to please Krishna. But I cannot manipulate, I cannot convince people to take books. It's just Krishna turns the switch, it happens. If he doesn't, it doesn't happen. And when you come to that platform and you just actually do it in that mood, that I'm totally dependent on Krishna, it becomes the most satisfying experience. And that applies to any service we're performing, to the degree that we're trying to control and adjust and make arrangements for my own situation and what I'm getting out of it. And I am, the priority and the enjoyer of the results. So much anxiety, so much tension. Drop all that and act for Krishna's pleasure, put our ambitions and desires aside, then real happiness within. And this is the practice of Krishna consciousness. Come to that platform that is not for me, it's for Krishna. Therefore, the devotee doesn't fear any condition of life. Why? Because it's not for me, it's for Krishna. So whatever condition of life, I can still serve. Fear comes because we have a desire to enjoy, we have a desire to control. We want to become fearless, we want to become free from the dualities of the material world, then we have to give up this propensity to enjoy the material world. Thank you very much. So we have a few minutes for questions, if anyone, or comments. Maybe the senior Vaishnavas would like to add something or some correction to what I said. Okay. No questions? You all accept it? Okay. Yeah. Good. Thank you. That's a nice conclusion. Srila Prabhupada ki. Grantara Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam ki. Yanitai Gaura Premanande.